Yeah, and I apologize earlier, by the way, Judge.
So
Mr.
that's the only
Schulman
time it's done it.
yeah, he had to sort of be shouting because he's actually talking to my computer, which is
Oh, okay.
But I just had a quick question for the court because I know that we're obviously doing cross TPOs here, and
Right.
I know for Ms. Messiah, um, the court combined the direct and the cross for Mr. Schulman. I just want to be clear that all the evidence that we're hearing today is in the totality going towards both TPOs, correct?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
if there's anything that needs to be cleaned up by either side at the conclusion, whether it's recross, redirect, or something like that to finish up both cases, I'll give you the opportunity to do that, but
Okay.
or to tender documents or whatever, whatever else may be hanging out there. It makes it a little more difficult to do it this way. And I apologize for being late getting back. I was trying to close out our Odyssey program, which was, they've updated it. And when they update things, everything does differently. And I had to go through about 12 cases. And I think y'all probably heard that little harp sound. I was trying to close it so I could get back to look at one of the ex parte orders. And I mentioned this only because it came up in cross about being able to get belongings. Normally, the ex parte judge will include a paragraph where any party is allowed to go back to a residence in the company of a sheriff's deputy one time in order to get their belongings. So I was just looking for it, and that kept making that harp sound every time I tried to get back into it. So I apologize for that. But I have since closed it all out, so hopefully we won't be hearing that now. All right, let's see. Okay. Mr. Schulman's case is rested for the moment, and I'll allow rebuttal for either case at the end. Ms. Messiah, you wish to present evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Lauren Cauley.
All right. If you'll swear in your witness, please.
Lauren, will you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your full name for the court, please?
Yes, Lauren May Cauley.
And what county do you live in, Ms. Cauley?
I currently reside in Gwinnett.
Okay. And how long have you lived in Gwinnett County?
A little under a year.
All right. And where did you live before then?
Excuse me. So by myself, I currently resided with Mr. Sheldman in his residence.
Okay.
Or previously, excuse me.
Okay. And what county is that at in Ms. Cauley?
I believe he is Gwinnett. His home was Gwinnett, Brookhaven.
Okay.
So.
And so do you know what county Brookhaven is in?
Yes, DeKalb, excuse me.
Okay.
It's in DeKalb.
All right.
Very nervous, yeah.
That's okay. Just take a breather. All right. And so we are going to, and what do you do for a living, Ms. Cauley?
I work as a marketing analyst for Fiber Visions. I've been with them for several years now. They're also up in the loop. So.
Okay. And tell us about when you started, again, your relationship with Mr. Schulman. You heard his testimony. Tell us whether he's correct or your thoughts about when you guys started your relationship.
Sure. Yes. So we started dating. We met on on Hinge, which is the online dating website. Probably started dating around April, and at the time he was living in Eclipse Apartments in Buckhead. So it was an immediate move-in. He asked me pretty immediately, and I started living with him in his apartment until he got the keys to his new home, and we moved into his new home in Brookhaven in August together. So it was last summer that he had purchased the home and allowed me to move in.
Okay. And so tell us, how was your relationship initially?
Initially our relationship was really great. We had a lot of fun. We agreed on a lot of the same ideas. Unfortunately, it became a precipitous, steep decline. But at first it was very much of the honeymoon phase, and we were getting along swimmingly. I didn't have anything bad to say about him until things started to go very downhill.
Tell us about when things started going downhill.
Things started going really downhill, like Mr. Shulman had said, around Christmas. Christmas is a very hard time of year for me. I lost my father 2 years ago, and it's been very difficult for my family and I. And I'm not perfect. I had my coping mechanisms, and around Christmas, what Mr. Shulman had testified to, I would agree, is when things started to go really downhill. However, his testimony that I was violent and hurt him and went after him are completely false. There's absolutely no truth to it. So never have been violent toward him, and I want to make that very clear.
Okay. And so we'll get to that. We appreciate that. You mentioned coping mechanisms. Tell the court what you believe to be your coping mechanism.
Sure. I don't drink or smoke. I don't partake in any of that. And there was some nitrous use around the holidays. And I will take responsibility for that. So they're not necessarily dangerous, they're legal. Not that makes it okay, but around the holidays, when I knew my relationship was failing, and I knew that was going to be probably inevitable, and just the hardness of getting through Christmas with little to no family caused me to cope with those. So
okay, so you mentioned having some troubles, and you've heard Mr. Shulman's testimony as it relates to alleged suicide attempt. Tell the court if you tried to commit suicide in December or January.
So that was false. I did not attempt to commit suicide, or I would be dead. Unfortunately, that day, as Mr. Shulman testified, I did go to jail, and the first thing they do is, give you your drug tests, and nothing appeared. So that is a false testimony on his end. Nothing was ingested or swallowed that would justify a suicide on that day. No.
Did you attempt to swallow anything? Were you trying to commit suicide? Like, they stop you from ingesting anything where he had to grab your wrist to prevent you?
He did grab my wrist. Yes, he got very physical with me that day, and I was begging him to please let me go. He had already called 911, but I had not ingested anything. No, he had just continuously held me down on the bed, and the cops came, and that was it.
Can you tell us why you believe Mr. Shulman was grabbing your wrist and holding you down?
I don't know. We were definitely fighting. Nothing physical up until that extent, up until he grabbed me. I did take what was prescribed to me and dumped some on the floor, but nothing was ingested, nothing was attempted.
Okay.
And that's when he said he was going to call 911 and was holding me down and holding me back. And I believe he testified that he said that I was going to falsely report domestic violence on his case, which I did not do, nor would ever consider doing.
Okay, so let's go to, the domestic violence. Let's go to the precipitous for you filing a temporary protective order against Mr. Schulman.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened that day.
I just had a feeling things were going downhill. So I had checked into a hotel up in North Atlanta to kind of get away. And when I came back, I wanted out of the house. That's when Mr. Schulman had also testified. I showed up with the 2 police who told him that if he did not let me in, then he was going to be arrested. I needed my clothes. I still have nothing. I don't have my bed. I don't have clothes to wear to court. I needed to get some dresses for work. Because that was Sunday morning when I had checked out of the hotel. And as soon as the police left, Mr. Schulman went upstairs to our master bedroom and locked the door, which is where I needed to primarily get, so I could get a suitcase full of clothes and things so I could go to work the next morning. And he testifies that I went into his closet and started ripping his clothes apart or something, but I'm here primarily because this is where he got very violent and physical with me.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Just calm down.
I'm sorry. So, the last thing I remember is, I went into my closet to try to get some clothes, and I just heard, "Here, let me help you with this." And he just picked me up as hard as he could by the back of my neck and just slammed me like with all of his force onto the ground. And it took me a moment or two to kind of come through or come to. And when I did, I looked up and I said, "Shay, you've just really hurt me. You've just hit me." And he said, "No, I did not." And he kept repeating, "No, I did not. No, I did not. No, I did not." And I said, "You absolutely did." And then he said, "Well, who's going to believe you? Because I'm the attorney." He claims in his testimony that I remained really calm when I recalled the police. And it was because he is armed. There's a ton of guns in that house. And when the police got back to investigate, he bold-faced lied to them as well that he had not touched me. And Mr. Schulman did end up leaving the house. And but when the cops asked, him, did you lay on her, he just said, "No, of course I didn't. No, of course I didn't," just like he is now today in court. And he absolutely did.
Okay.
And
So
that's why I'm here, because I don't feel safe really at all.
all right. So was there any pictures, or tell me about the injuries? Tell me about what evidence that you have, or anything that shows any injuries that you sustained that day.
Sure. When he said, "Let me help you with this," when I was getting my clothes, and he picked me up by the back of the neck and like WWE slam me, or whatever the wrestling thing is, into the ground. And
Okay.
like I said, when I called the cops again, I don't know what they recorded, but when he was asked to leave the house, when he left the house, I called my girlfriend that night, Amy, who keeps getting mentioned. And when Amy saw the back of my neck, she was insistent that we call the police again because it was pretty bad. And she took a photo.
All right, so I'd like to, if we could pull up what's been marked as petitioner's Exhibit A. Tell us about this photo, Ms. Cauley, and if you recognize it.
Yeah, I do. So it was behind my neck where he initially had grabbed me to throw me to the ground in our master. And
Who do you mean by he? Who are you speaking of when you say?
Mr. Schulman, when I was trying to get clothes out of my closet, he said, "Here, let me help you with this." Picked me up by the back of the neck with some pretty brute force and slammed me to the ground with some pretty brute force.
And is this a true and accurate depiction of the?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, it is.
All right, Ms. Cauley, please let your attorney finish her question before you begin to answer.
I'm sorry. Yes, Your Honor.
It's okay. All right, and Mr. Bixson is, along with the rest of us who had an opportunity to look at what's been marked here as Exhibit A. I'd like to enter that into evidence, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Bixon.
No objection, Judge.
All right, entered without objection.
And so, Mr. Cauley, Ms. Cauley, what happened after that? After you mentioned Mr. Schulman pulled you down with brute force. So what happened after that?
Yep. So
Excuse me, can we take this exhibit down now?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Your
Okay.
Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So when I came to a bit, and like I reiterated, I said, "Shay, you've really just hurt me." He said, "No, I didn't. No, I didn't. And no one's going to believe you." And he kept reiterating the fact that no one is going to believe me under the pretense that he was the attorney and that I kind of, would never hold any candle to that. Because he is, he's an attorney. And
Tell us about any law enforcement,
sure.
happened after that.
So in his petition, I know he says, I was remaining very calm. I felt I had to because Shay is armed. There's guns all over the house, which is another reason I really want a protective order. And so the cops were not even out of the neighborhood before when I called them again to report this act of violence. And when they got there, Shay looked at the cops once again and bold-faced lied and said, "I have not touched her. I have not touched her," and repeated it over and over. So at that point, like he testified, the cops said, "Well, you can leave your house," and he agreed to do that. I wanted to stay under the pretense that I could start packing my things and get out of the house. I had my dog there that I did not want to uproot again. I had very little money at the time. Mr. Schulman had originally offered to help me get out, but all these offers were extracted. So I was kind of left on my own. And so I'm here because I don't feel safe. Mr. Schulman.
So before you go, Ms. Cauley, I'm sorry to interject before we.
Okay.
So you shared with the court you didn't have anywhere to go. Offers were extracted. What did you do to remove yourself from the home?
I stayed at the house. I locked up and I had my friend come and stay with me, who was the armed one. I believe I had no idea she was armed. I personally hate guns. And I didn't have any money or anywhere to go at that point because his offers were extracted for financial help to get me out.
Okay.
So
All right. And so you mentioned reporting the assault to the police. Did you share with anyone else and who, if anyone, that, you had been assaulted by Mr. Schumann?
I did. I texted his sister what I thought to be a respectful text, just letting her know that her brother and I are no longer together, and I've got evidence of that, and I'm sorry it had to end this way, and I've always tried to be very respectful of their family, but it's over. Him and I have broken up, and after he was violent, I did text his mother one text message letting her know what her son had did, because I would have considered his mother and I to been pretty close over Shay's course and I of dating for a year. I did not consider them to be harassing text messages. It was more so just letting them know that the relationship was ending with Mrs. Schulman, Shay's mother. I did let her know that her son had been violent with me, and I felt that she needed to know. And so there was that one text message sent to her.
Did tell us about whether or not either Mrs. Schumann's sister or mother asked you not to contact them again?
No, I never heard back from them.
Okay.
No. So once that was done, I didn't want to get involved with his family. I wanted to move on peacefully. It was that was it.
Okay. All right. And so tell us, again, and you've heard Mr. Schumann's testimony. Have you put your hands on Mr. Schumann?
No.
Have you threatened? Tell us about any threats to Mr. Schumann that you've made.
I've made no threats to Mr. Schulman besides I want to get out of his home peacefully, and that I'm sorry that things ended the way that they did. And I truly mean that, but I've never been violent with Mr. Schulman. I couldn't be violent with him if I wanted to. He's bigger than me. He's an attorney. I didn't want any trouble. And these are just absolute false accusations. I've never swung at Mr. Schulman or hit him or been a danger or anything of that nature to him.
So I'm sure you heard the testimony that you changed your number several times, multiple times, to keep contacting Mr. Schulman. Tell the court if that's the case, and if so, is that true, or tell us about it?
Sure. Yeah. I did. There's an app you can change your phone number to get in touch with somebody. I was simply trying to get in touch with Mr. Schulman to get my things. I didn't even have anything to wear to court this morning. And he was making it very difficult to get into, contact with. My bed is there, my things are there. At that point he had offered me some financial help to get out, and these offers were being taken away. But I mean, it was truly to get my things back. And I wasn't getting any sort of answer back, which is why I went to the house so early in the morning with 2 police escorts the next morning, which ended violently for me.
Tell us about what resources and who else you might have reached out to get some help. And for instance, the post. Tell us what your thoughts were behind posting on Facebook.
Sure. I think we all know by now that social media can be a really great tool, and when Mr. Shulman originally hit me, I was very scared, and I didn't know what to do. I knew I was probably going to need an attorney, because he was one, and made that very clear that I was going to be the party in trouble, because he, has the quote unquote upper hand of being this attorney. And like you said, his name was not in the post. It was not meant to hurt him or defame him or whatnot. I posted it because I needed help, because he slammed me to the ground that morning, and I needed resources. I needed help, and neighborhood groups like that with other women who have been through it can be a really great source. So that's why I made that post.
And so tell us, are you about any fears or concerns you have related to Mr. Shulman presently?
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Shulman has called my workplace several times. He's called my HR. I think in his testimony, he said Mrs. Weaver, Amy, was the HR director, and that's not the case. She was fired back in July. We've got a brand new person he's called. He's called the CEO. He has called my ex-boyfriend. He has called my mother. I know he's attempted my sister.
Judge, I'm going to object to this as
Hold-
hearsay.
All right, Ms. Messiah.
Your Honor, she's just giving her knowledge, her belief as to who Mr. Shulman is called. She's discussing why, same as Mr. Shulman was afforded the opportunity, why she feels as though she's concerned and there is a threat. She's just sharing those threats and what has taken place with the court.
What is the basis of her knowledge of whether he did or didn't contact these people? I can understand the HR person.
So I can, if you want me to lay foundation as to why she believes that Mr. Shulman contacted those individuals, I'm more than welcome to, I can go down that road. But similar as Mr. Shulman testified to his mother being called, his partner being called, his sister being called, Miss Cauley is just doing the same thing, just presenting the same similar information as Mr. Shulman has about who she believes have been called and why she feels as though Mr. Shulman is a threat.
All right, well, it's good for both sides. I'll overrule the objection then, but let's not get too far afield. Has she already given us her list?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor. It's
Okay.
the same list of people that Mr. Shulman has.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on then.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so is that are those your only threats? And because the court needs to understand, you're asking the court to award you a 12-month protective order. Right?
Yes, I am, I have to start my life over. I was with Mr. Shulman thinking, we were gonna do life together, but he is heavily armed, and I mean heavily, and that scares the crap out of me. There's a lot of like spy equipment in the house. Like I've reiterated, he's reaching out to work. I'm interviewing right now for some really good jobs. I don't know if he's going to go after those. I am, he's in a gated community, I'm once again starting over, and I know that he's angry with me, and I'm sleeping with one eye open. I'm not eating, I'm not drinking, I'm having a very, very hard time. And
Ms. Cauley, I apologize for interrupting. I thought you were through then. What do you mean heavily armed? What is your basis for that?
Mr. Shulman is a gun aficionado.
Okay, well, we saw pictures of 2 guns, a paint gun, and a couple of air pistols.
That's hardly it, sir.
Well, what else are you telling the court?
Like AR-15s, like the school shooting rifles. I don't know because I'm not a gun person. I hate them.
Are you saying you've seen these items?
Yes, sir.
Where are they? Or where were they when you saw them?
They're downstairs in the basement.
Okay, you mentioned AR-15. I mean, what else have you allegedly seen?
Glocks, like the heavy,
Judge, I'm going to have to object to this whole line of questioning about firearms. There haven't been any allegations that he ever committed any act of violence or even threatened her with a fire. There's no allegation that a firearm was ever used in anything here. And really,
I understand that. It was in her petition, though, that he was heavily armed. There was comment to the police that he was heavily armed. So it's been a part of this hearing. I wanted to understand, is the definition of heavily armed the paint gun, the 2 BB guns, and 2 pistols? That's what I'm trying to clarify, is the definition in her mind of what is heavily armed.
no, no, sir. It's a lot more than that. It's, and I wish I had more gun knowledge. It was, what are those bullets? The hollow point bullets, like buckets of those. Like it's, I'm come from a military family. My dad was in the Navy, and my grandfather was a drill sergeant, and I know what guns look like, and this is like an excessive, scary amount. And it scared me from day one, and I'm really scared now that all of this has gone on. And I'm
Sure.
really trying to just start my life over. And
Okay. About approximately how many, because the court is trying to understand how many is excessive. So can you give an estimate as to how many guns that you've seen in the home?
at least 20.
All of them in the basement?
That I know of. I know there was some in the closet. I didn't necessarily go looking because they scare me so badly. Like I said, my father grew up with guns, but they were always locked up. These were not. They're all over the car. All in his Jeep.
Do I understand, though, that based on your testimony, has he ever threatened you with a gun?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to try and get some clarification on what she perceived he possessed.
You're okay. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Messiah.
And so there's been testimony in terms of using the nitrous canisters, and you mentioned that as a coping mechanism. Have you sought treatment or been hospitalized?
Yeah, so I've been seeing the same psychiatrist for 5 years now, and he's really great. And I go about twice a week now, and I actually just finished a week-long program that I was able to pay for by myself, and I'm looking at new ones. So, it's not something I'm proud of, but it doesn't make me a danger. I'm just desperately trying to start my life over, and I'd like to do it feeling safe.
No further questions, Your Honor.